Florida State and Clemson can release themselves from the ACC grant of rights, is it more likely that Clemson and Florida State will be joining a new created ACC conference, a more condensed, valuable conference with Florida State, Clemson, and 6 other ACC members, then going to, the SEC of the Big Ten? According to Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports, maybe so. Maybe so. Welcome to episode 381 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's not waste any more time. Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports, put out an article later this afternoon, Yahoo Sports. We provide a link in the description. You could read the whole article. It's a long article with a lot of information. We do not go through the whole thing. What does Clemson's lawsuit against the ACC mean? Here are 4 key questions on move that could have massive implications. Again, we do not go through the whole article, but we do talk about North Carolina being the linchpin in what options does Clemson and Florida State have? Last May, and what began as a quiet Monday morning, ACC athletic directors filed into a conference room within a luxurious oceanfront resort in Florida to begin their annual spring meetings. A proverbial cloud loomed over the meetings. An elephant lurked in the corner. We remember this well. In a published story that morning, a months-long secret was revealed. 7 of the 14 ACC schools had independently held meetings in a concerted effort to find an exit path from the conference and its television contract. A deal with ESPN that puts the league at a physical disadvantage to fellow power conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. Half of the administrators, those left out of discussions, were aghast at such a brewing succession plan from Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. How could you? Intense discussions unfolded. Cards were placed on the table. Feelings were hurt. And while ACC administrators and their commissioner, Jim Phillips, sang a tune of Kumbaya, at the end of the week, the league began to splinter internally. Again, Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports, this Tuesday, March 19th, late afternoon. 10 months later, the ACC sits on what feels like death's door. Not one, but now 2. Not one, but now 2 members. Arguably, the ACC's top football brands have filed lawsuits against the league as an initial step in exiting. On Tuesday, today, Clemson joined Florida State in filing their claim in Pickens County, South Carolina court, making also very clear at least one thing. They want out of the conference. Clemson's legal filing centers mostly on the ACC's grant of rights, which in tandem with the ESPN's television deal binds members together until 2036 by owning each school's broadcasting rights to their home games. Clemson argues that the ACC, for one, does not in fact control its broadcasting rights if the university leaves the conference, as it apparently plans to do, and number 2, cannot enforce a $140 million exit fee when Clemson leaves the conference. University lawyers argue the reasons for such claims over 28 pages of legal clauses and attorney jargon, but here's the short and sweet of it. Clemson and other ACC schools granted their media rights to the league to perform a contractual obligation of the conference, expressly set for in the ESPN's agreement, according to language in the grant of rights. Well, if Clemson leaves the ACC, then its games are no longer subject to the ESPN agreement. The school argues, Clemson argues. The result of FSU and Clemson legal claims will have a wide-ranging implications for all of college athletics. A court permitting their exit sets precedent for all other such claims and could render void other granted rights in other leagues. Not only that, but it puts the ACC closer to a complete collapse, not dissimilar to that of the Pac-12. The league, currently at 17 members, is required to have 15 members to satisfy the ESPN agreement. Falling below the number opens the door for the network to end the contract. One of the primary reasons the conference added 3 schools, SMU, Stanford, and Cal, last year in a controversial expansion movement not supported by the 3 members. We'll get to that later. Of course, North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. Plenty of questions linger. Will any of the ACC schools join this succession effort as they did last spring? What is ESPN's role in all this? Where could Clemson and Florida State land? Why now? Florida State's filing in December came a couple weeks after the Seminoles were left out of the college football playoff. Perhaps an event triggered Clemson's timing too. The CFP and ESPN recently finalized their agreement on a 6-year extension with a new revenue model that puts a further disadvantaged programs not in the Big Ten and the SEC. In the agreement, the Big Ten and the SEC will each receive 29% of the $1.3 billion annual payout from the network. Teams in those leagues will see their annual payouts nearly quadruple from the current figure to the tune of $21 to $23 million. Quadruple. The ACC and the Big 12 will get 17.1%, 14.7% of the distribution, respectively. A striking difference that exasperates the revenue gap and draws a tangible defining line between the Power 2 and the other two. The ACC schools will receive about 7 to 10 million less annually than those in the SEC and the Big 10. Now, says one ACC administrator, combine that with the gap in TV revenue. Holy smokes. Within 3 years, projections show the Big Ten and the SEC schools earning nearly double, 80, 90 million in annual conference distribution, as those in the ACC and the Big 12, 45 to 50 million, a gap attributed mostly to football-related TV revenue. Interesting enough, the CFP contract is expected to include what's termed a look-in in 2028 to possibly reevaluate the deal, a provision that almost certainly is aimed at the instability in the ACC. Where do Florida State and Clemson land? This is quite interesting here. Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports. This is possibly the most asked question of realignment over the last several months. I got to tell you, Ross Dellenger takes a different angle to this than PATC. Let me know what you believe. Put down your comments and thoughts in the comment section below the video, even if the courts don't grant them a free exit from the ACC. Florida State and Clemson feel destined to lead the league, even if that means paying an exorbitant amount, as much as $500 million each, or striking a settlement. Would the ACC give in at some point? To use a somewhat tired analogy, the FSU and Clemson ships have untethered from the ACC port and shoved off into the ocean. There's no turning back now. But where do they go? Asked one industry source. They have to have something, said another. Does one untie from a secure place without an agreement to be welcomed into another? Before leaping to the conclusions about the SEC and the Big Ten's interest in the Noles and the Tigers, let's visit several other paths in which the two schools could find a more suitable home. Number 1. Again, Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports. A complete ACC implosion. For the most part, the league is held together by the deal with ESPN. There are largely 2 ways that ESPN could set fire to the contract: if the league drops below the 15-member threshold, or if ESPN selects next February to decline and opt into the final 9 years of the contract that extends through 2036. If ESPN ends the deal, or if Florida State and Clemson are successful in setting a precedent and exiting the grant of rights, the ACC will be much like the Pac-12, with many of its members left desperate in searching for homes as its more valuable schools either coalesce or join other conferences. In this scenario, this is pretty much the PATC money shot of the article. There's two of them. Here's the first one. In this scenario, 8 to 10 of the programs could reform the ACC into a smaller and more valuable conference, a curing of the league, and one of the topics discussed among the 7 last spring. A pay-for-play system is on the horizon, so maybe 2 is a complete separation from those programs that can afford to pay their athletes directly and those schools that cannot or choose not to do so. It's been no secret. The SEC and the Big Ten, as well as the NCAA, are exploring new athlete compensation models in an effort to potentially settle the House antitrust. Such a new model could bring an overhaul to the entire conference landscape of the sport. Such an overhaul impact television contracts and disrupt conferences altogether. This is the money shot of the article. And again, we haven't gone through every page of the article. This is the last page we're doing here in episode 381. Joining another league. Ah, yes. The option everyone wants to talk about, but perhaps not the most likely scenario for specifically Florida State and Clemson. Really? Ross Dellenger thinks it's more likely that Florida State and Clemson, if they get out of the grant of rights, will cause the whole ACC to implode, and then a reformation, the Magnificent Seven, plus at least one other school, if not 3 other schools, and 8 to 10 former members of the ACC, they just reemerge with each other, coalesce, condense themselves to a smaller but yet more valuable conference to the media partners among those schools. Then what would happen with the Boston College, the Syracuse, potentially others, Georgia Tech? Wow. The Magnificent Seven might turn into the new ACC 8 or the new ACC 10, according to Ross Dellenger. And in the article, go ahead and read the whole thing. There's a link provided in the description box. That is more likely than Florida State or Clemson joining the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't know what to think about that. That's been the opposite of what we've been told at Peek Around the Corner. But you got to keep an eye on Ross Dellenger's reporting. Is this the play? It's the dissolution theory, but they can't really do it until they get released in the courts or a settlement from the ACC grant of rights. And in doing so, they can form the new ACC 8, the ACC 10. They'll probably give it a different name for branding purposes alone. Holy smokes. Do you agree with Ross Dellenger? Is it more likely that Florida State and Clemson, if they get out of the ACC as it is now, that they'll go in this 8 to 10 team ACC conference instead of going to the Big Ten and the SEC? Boy, that is a gamble. That's a huge gamble. Because we don't know what type of media contract those top 8 brands can get in the ACC. Would they have a scheduling agreement with Notre Dame? Would they have an ACC network? I don't know. Because in the Big Ten, the SEC, they have their networks. These Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, possibly Miami could get equity from day one in these networks. And it's all lined up. They might have to come in as a discount, but 6 years from now, they would be fully invested in members. And 6 years is just right around the corner. It would be a huge gamble for Florida State and Clemson. They're already gambling once, so they're going to gamble again and create an 8 new 10 ACC. Wow. We shall see. I don't know about that, but Ross Dellenger, you got to keep an eye on his reporting. Put down your comments and thoughts in the comments section below the video. Once Florida State and Clemson can release themselves from this ACC grant of rights, where do you think they will land? North Carolina is the linchpin to it all. They're up on the Holy Smokes Theater. Are they going to get into the courts to challenge the ACC? We're going to have more fireworks. No question about it. So brace for impact. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.